Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 19th, 2022 Season 2 episode of Ask Us, a web show for the clinical trials community. The Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research and the British Columbia Academic Health Science Network joined to create a dynamic and integrated health research organization. We have 3 operational units: BC Support Unit, Clinical Trials BC, and Research Ethics BC, and funding programs for researchers. Together, we deliver a range of essential knowledge and management services and supports that collectively enable learning health systems in BC and strengthen our reach and impact. I am Jean Smart, the host of Ask Us. I would like at this time to acknowledge that our broadcast today extends across many Indigenous lands and territories throughout British Columbia. We acknowledge with respect and humility that our Vancouver offices are located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Our producer today is Nan Doe. Good afternoon, Nan.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good. This is a special season end edition of Ask Us. We are honoring some British Columbians who have made some outstanding contributions to the clinical trials community, and we're also celebrating the clinical trials community itself. We'll start today with the Clinical Trials BC Awards presentations, and it will be followed by an interview of the Clinical Trials BC team on Team Talk on a then and now interview in celebration of International Clinical Trials Day. To get started, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Alison Orth, the Director of Clinical Trials BC, who will lead us into our first segment. Alison.
Thank you, Jean. Hello, everyone. We're really delighted you could join us today to celebrate this year's award recipients. Individuals and groups that are conducting, supporting, and enabling clinical trials across our province are contributing in magnificent and different ways to the health and well-being of British Columbians. Their dedication to clinical trials in all aspects of our health has changed lives and improved our clinical trial ecosystem in BC. Each year, Clinical Trials BC is pleased to recognize those that have contributed outstanding leadership and distinguished service or support to the clinical trials community. In 2021, the recipients that were recognized for their 25 years of service and support were awards that were presented to the Clinical Research Professionals of British Columbia, or the CRPBC, and FASCN. For 2022, we are presenting 2 awards again, and it is our privilege to honor them in our virtual ceremony today. Nominees were selected based on the description that was provided in the nomination package. Recipients were determined after reviewing the eligible nominations and considered deliberation by the Volunteer Review Committee that included internal staff from Health Research BC, our external advisory council members, a patient partner, and representation from provincial and national life sciences organizations. We invite you all to join us as we watch the pre-recorded event.
Hello, and welcome to the 2022 Clinical Trials BC Awards presentation. My name is Alison Orth, Director of Clinical Trials BC, which is a unit of Michael Smith Health Research BC. With respect and humility, we are very grateful to be hosting our awards ceremony today on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. This is Dr. Sterling Bryan, our Chief Scientific Officer at Michael Smith Health Research BC.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The annual Clinical Trials BC Awards recognise and honour individuals and organisations that have contributed notable leadership and distinguished service and support to the clinical trials community in British Columbia. On International Clinical Trials Day this year, we're excited to present 2 awards.
The first award is the Clinical Trials BC Leadership and Advocacy Award.
The Clinical Trials BC Leadership and Advocacy Award honours outstanding leaders and advocates for clinical trials at the local, provincial and national level. It is awarded to clinical trial leaders who tirelessly educate, mentor, advocate or spearhead projects and programs and strategies that benefit our clinical trials community and whose work has been notable and impactful. The qualifications and criteria associated with this award include significant acts, leadership action, awareness and advocacy in the BC clinical trials community.
This year, the award goes to an individual that exemplifies leadership and advocacy for clinical trials in the province. This individual has inspired people to do clinical trials through his 40 years of teaching, mentorship, and promotion of research and researchers throughout British Columbia. Through his advocacy and promotion of inclusion and diversity, the patient voice has been more recognized in clinical trials, in provincial projects, national structures, and international policy and governance. Finally, this person has led initiatives to create and develop capacity and build major sustainable, enabling, and collaborative infrastructure for conducting clinical trials in BC.
On behalf of Health Research BC, Clinical Trials BC, and the research community, we are pleased to present the award to Dr. Robert McMaster.
Thank you, Sterling. I'm very honored to receive the prestigious Clinical Trials BC Leadership and Advocacy Award for 2022. The award really represents teamwork to enhance the support of clinical trials across BC. The origins of teamwork go back almost 15 years now, with the initial concepts in discussion with Pierre Moulion, who at that point in time was Chief Scientific Officer at Genome BC. Based on Pierre's experience in setting up the Irish Clinical Research Network, ICRIN, and GeneSmart's expertise, we worked together with the research institutes and universities across BC to establish BC CRIN. With the recruitment of Heather Harris and our strong steering committee, BC CRIN became a very successful enterprise with recognition across Canada and globally. Pierre went on to be CEO of Genome Canada and currently leads the multi-billion European Innovative Medicines Initiative, and Heather is Executive Director at the CIHR SPORE Solve CKD Network. The transition to Clinical Trials BC and the leadership from Alison, Jean, and Gavin, Clinical Trials BC is the leader in the coordination, support, and development of clinical trials in Canada. Through Reach BC, we have the patient voice at all levels. So this award belongs to the wonderful teamwork we all enjoy. Thank you so much, and I am very honored.
The second award given this year is the Clinical Trials BC Service and Support Award.
The Service and Support Award recognizes the community-based, volunteer commitment of an individual, organization, company, or agency to improve the research and clinical trials community. The qualifications and criteria associated with this award include notable impact, leadership, advancement of knowledge, and service or support contributions for the advancement of clinical trials in British Columbia.
This year, the award properly belongs to a group that consists of patients, frontline clinicians, scientists, engineers, educators, trainees, as well as partners in health authorities, provincial governments, industry, regulatory and funding bodies who have volunteered their time, expertise, and served on the multiple working groups as leaders to help us get through the pandemic. As a team, they created the Research is Care document and a province-wide partnership program that aims at creating innovative health systems and structures capable of capturing collective input and feedback for the prioritization and coordination of COVID-19 translational research. The work of this initiative and team has supported the necessary clinical trials required to make available treatments, testing, and vaccines for COVID-19.
On behalf of Health Research BC, Clinical Trials BC, and our research community, we are pleased to present this award to the COVID-19 Clinical Research Coordination Initiative, also known as CRCI. The award will be accepted today by Michelle Wong, Stefania Manusha, and Annie Richtera. The chair of the Clinical Research Working Group, Dr. Ted Steiner, was unable to be with us today in person.
At the onset of the pandemic in 2020, the UBC Faculty of Medicine was pleased to collaborate with many partners to create the Provincial COVID-19 Clinical Research Coordination Initiative, or CRCI. We have established a network across BC between the post-secondary institutions, health authorities, the Ministry of Health, and our patient partners, with the goal of enabling the prioritization and coordination of COVID-19 translational research. Now, 2 very busy years later, we deeply appreciate the acknowledgement by Clinical Trials BC and are pleased to be a recipient of this year's Service Support Award. The CRCI is based on the fundamental belief that together we are stronger. Together with my colleagues who will be speaking next, I gratefully accept this award on behalf of the many, many individuals who were involved in CRCI's collaborative efforts that supported the clinical research community and beyond.
It can be challenging for clinical researchers and administrators to stay informed of all the great research that happens across the province, and collaborations too often depend on chance meetings or lucky introductions. The CRCI has been a great step forward in changing this. The connections we are building through the CRCI have allowed us to work more collaboratively, to break down barriers, and to bring more trials to our patients. Looking beyond COVID, the CRCI also created a space for us to envision a more connected and collaborative research network in BC. It has been a labor of love for so many researchers, clinicians, administrators, and our 3 phenomenal patient partners. Thanks goes to each of them and their incredible effort and dedication, and to Clinical Trials BC for this recognition.
Hello, my name is Annie, and on behalf of the patient partners Heidi, Wayne, and myself, I want to thank you for this award. We are truly honored to have the opportunity to support the outstanding work done by the dedicated healthcare professionals in the CRCI group. It has been a privilege being part of this great team, and during the work we saw roadblocks existing in the world of health research in BC. That's the reason why we started the initiative Research is Care, Care is Research. We hope to be able to continue to contribute to the advancement of research and healthcare in British Columbia. It's been a really great group to work with, and we are very appreciative of the dedication from everyone, how much everyone cares, not just about research, but also about the people and the patients who benefit from it. The personal investment by everyone has really been outstanding. And thank you again.
Thank you all for joining us today for the awards presentation. As Director of Clinical Trials BC, I'm thrilled to have bestowed these awards on two very deserving recipients that have made such an impact on the clinical trials and research community in our province over the past year.
I hope that you all take time to congratulate the recipients of these awards in your own way and share the news on social media. Thank you and happy International Clinical Trials Day 2022.
Thank you all for joining us for that, watching the award ceremony today. Congratulations again to our recipients. And I would like to thank you all for joining us and to everyone who contributed to the awards event and the ceremony this year, especially our team members, Nyan Do, Rishi Sani, and Jean Smart, and all of those who volunteered their time on our awards review committee. We hope to see you next year for the 2023 awards, and nominations will be opening in the fall. So please start thinking about who you wish to nominate. Thank you. Over to you, Jean.
Thanks. Now for our second segment. Development of clinical trials in all global regions do require a great deal of support and leadership. And congratulations to the recipients. We have made amazing progress through time here in BC, nationally and internationally. International Clinical Trials Day is celebrated around the world on May 20th to recognize the day that James Lind started what is considered the first clinical trial. In 1747, on board the HMS Salisbury, Dr. Lind randomized 12 men with scurvy into groups and experimented with different treatments. The group that recovered, as you can see in the picture, most visibly was the one that received citrus fruit. So you will probably notice lemons in the background of all of our guests today, and it's the symbol of International Clinical Trials Day. Our topic today is a team talk on then and now. There's change occurring at the international, regional, and local levels. Clinical trials in our modern era need to be appropriate and flexible enough to address the increasing diversity of study type, data sources that are being employed to support regulatory and other health policy decisions. The underlying principles of human protection and quality remain. We now view and consider clinical trials through patient, risk, quality, and diversity lenses. We're building on the current framework and regulations, and we're introducing flexibilities to support innovation and evolving trial complexity. Today at Clinical Trials, the BC team is going to answer some great questions that were sent in by the audience, and we're going to answer some key questions about aspects of clinical trial modernization initiatives. So the Ask Us overriding question for today is, what are the significant ways clinical trials are evolving that inspire you? I'd like to introduce our guests, Alison Orth, Unit Director, Steph Chia, the Research BC Manager, Aisling Quinley, the Research BC Marketing and Communications Specialist, Rishi Sani, the Administrative Assistant, Mark Saunders, our Project Manager, Robin Tukat, the Project Coordinator, and Nando, as you have been introduced to, the Education and Communications Coordinator and the producer of this show. Guests, welcome, and I hope you're excited to be here.
Hi, Jean. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jean.
I have some hard questions for you. Do you remember when we used paper and newspaper ads for clinical trials and bulletin board marketing, telephone logs, learn by do education? Now we're talking about notable changing technology. So my first question from the audience was, what ongoing and accelerated technologies do you find to be the most exciting and of benefit to clinical trial advancement? And I'm looking at you, Mark. Would you like to take a crack at that?
Sure. Thanks, Jean. I think with the past 2 years being still very fresh in our minds. Technology certainly became very important very quickly, and we learned just how powerful it can be. And you know, us talking today through Zoom has enabled many things that were not really possible before. Various patient appointments and research interactions and things like this. Myself personally working with what's called the Clinical Trial Management System. This is an online cloud-based platform that we're helping implement across the province, which enables groups to better and more efficiently run their clinical trials. So these things are really popping up everywhere. And on a more personal note, you know, one of the studies that I'm currently participating in, all that's required is for me to answer a few questions on my phone every day and wear a strap on my arm. And more than 12 different metrics are sent to the study team directly. I don't even have to go in. Quite frankly, I don't know where they're based. And, you know, that's how research is going to be done. So, you know, there's a place for technology in all steps of it.
Great answer. How about Aisling?
Hi, Jean. I think I'll probably echo quite a lot about what Mark said. I think like the old way of recruiting has changed so much. Like there was a day when all studies were, you know, there was ads in local newspapers or there was notices on bulletin boards. And like that certainly does exist. I only saw it this morning. There's like a little coffee shop right by where I live on West 10th. And there was like a poster hanging there recruiting for like a health research study. But I think the question we just need to ask ourselves is like, does it work? Like, is that the most efficient way to recruit people? And, you know, from that poster, not one stub was taken from the contact us section. So I think it's just telling us that like posters don't really hit the mark anymore. And historically, yes, they worked. But now we need to meet people where they're at. And it's exactly what Mark was saying. Like they're at home, you know, we're all in our homes online. We've had those crazy 2 years that was meant to be the 2 weeks with COVID. So I think recruiting online is where we're going to. And it's great because we can reach people in rural areas and giving people those opportunities to participate that weren't, you know, not just in these big cities is where a lot of the demographic or a lot of the people were being recruited. So I like that we can invite people from everywhere and people can participate virtually online or remotely from their home and like mail in the findings and get involved in studies. And I think platforms such as Reach BC are so crucial and important now because it allows people to see the studies from all across BC, not just in your local area, and have full authority over their own personal data. So like what they want to share or what study they want to get involved in, and then they get to decide what is of interest of them and to be matched. That's quite a long-winded answer, but
it's a big answer. It's a big question. It is a big question. It was my favorite one from the audience. But maybe Robin, do you want to have a crack at that one too?
Yeah, happily. I'm excited about the development of electronic platforms for things like quality management systems, management of investigational product, and particularly in ways that are accessible to smaller sites and grant-funded trials. So just imagine being able to run a report on things like all the data associated with a study drug dispensed at one specific visit, your dose, your lot number, time dispensed, who dispensed, expiry date, temperature trail, all that stuff. And then things like being able to quickly run a report on whose training is expired or outstanding for the entire site or for your entire center, and having automated reminders to people that they need to update their training. I think that would really increase our regulatory compliance and save a lot of time.
Okay, and maybe one more panelist on this one. How about Rishi?
Sure, thanks, Jane. Yeah, I'm going to echo what a lot of my colleagues have said already. I'm excited about just the improvements we're making in telehealth and overall virtual connections altogether. You know, giving people access to consultations, to meetings, just getting them more introduced to trials in general, who may be in remote settings or rural settings, who wouldn't have had this access 10 years ago. You know, maybe they'd have to go to a doctor's office or a hospital and find a bulletin board somewhere or a newspaper ad, as Aisling said. And now it's simple as an email to someone that could set up a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or whatever it is, and it can get the ball rolling. So I'm excited about the advancements we're making there. I'm also just excited what the next generation of those platforms we're using will look like. You know, we know Zoom is going to improve. We know Teams are going to improve. Whatever your virtual platform is, it's only going to improve and get better. And the convenience to that and the benefits to clinical trials are pretty obvious, I think, just because you get more access to more population, you know, just having that diverse population. That's what we need. You know, these populations who are in, I would say, rural or remote settings, or just further away from a central hub city, they haven't had the access like other people have had before. They've been historically overlooked. So it benefits trials to get more people involved always. So I'm excited about what the future looks. I think we're on the right path there.
Perfect. That bridges so nicely to our next question that came from a patient partner. What do you think are the most significant elements from the then and now shift from medical-centered models and philosophy to the transparent and inclusive models and approaches? And I'm going to pick on Allison.
Thanks, Jean. You know, when you talk about like that, what's the biggest shift? To me, it's the shift from using the word subject to participant. And it's not just a word, it really is the meaning that goes along with that. And as you know well, the new regulatory and the best practices guidelines internationally adopted in Canada, but all of the work through groups like the patient-oriented research SPORE networks and our local BC support unit, it's all cementing the shift from one where we study a human to one that becomes humanized. And that's the thing that to me has been all the way along, all the other changes, it's that sort of shift. So, and the patient voice is now really recognized in clinical trials by all stakeholders, including industry. We're seeing that now, the engagement of patient and public advocacy groups and individual patient partners for planning, design, conduct, dissemination, reporting on clinical trials. It's all there. It's there in regulation now, but it's also there in practice. And I think that has been the biggest shift, and that's really going to change everything. This person-centered or participant-centered approach, yet with rigor and scientific method, and our randomized controlled trial designs but it's the shift is focused from it's that design first and everything else sort of last to thinking of centering it around the participant.
I love your answer. Okay. Steph, do you want to try answering that?
Sure. Thank you, Jean. Well, I think one of the major places where there's been a change in transparency is around reporting, study reporting. So clinical trials, clinical studies, and sharing the results of the studies with the study participants. So it's great to see now with international guidelines, not only is that sharing of those results required, but also that those results need to be publicly posted and available for others to see, not only those study participants. Like study participants have been asking for this information for years and years, have made it known that this is something important to them, of like what has happened after I've participated in this clinical trial. They deserve to know. And that's, I think, not only now with the new regulations that they need to know, they need to be told when they're going to get that information and how they're going to get that information. It's all really will benefit everyone, for the clinical team as well as the participants. I know that's something that here, you know, at Clinical Trials BC, we've been advocating for some time, and like we've worked on developing some resources and tools to help clinical trials studies have that, to be able to communicate that back to the participants. We've been able to post study results now on the Reach BC platform as well. So we're all really supportive, and that's really, I like to see that this transparency has been improved a lot from how it was before.
It's very exciting, and it's nice to see it finally come. And what about maybe Robin? Do you want to talk about that from a implementation perspective? What it's like on the break side?
Sure. Yeah. So you mentioned transparency and inclusiveness, and I think that we need transparent, inclusive models to be able to integrate more quality by design So to effectively put quality systems in place, we need to be able to have open discussions about risks and other factors that are critical to generating reliable data. And only then can we learn from these and use them for continuous quality improvement.
Okay, that was a great question. Thank you from our one of the patient partners in the community to put that up to us. Okay, question number 3 might be a little harder. They're getting harder. E8, ICH E8, general considerations in clinical trials. It was implemented in Canada in January 2022. It came fast and allows for new clinical trial types and designs. In terms of slow-moving regulatory, that is very now. One of the hottest topics, and certainly the most abrupt then and now shifts in clinical trials right now, is from centralized medical-centered trials moving to decentralized clinical trials. I have, of course, as you know, added DCTs to my large acronym list. So team, what are your thoughts on the arrival of decentralized clinical trials and some of the notable elements and opportunities associated with them? Mark, I'm going to circle back to you.
Thanks, Jean. I think a lot of the kind of fascination I have with decentralized trials has been touched on a bit by my colleagues. You know, Rishi had mentioned all these different rural and remote populations that are now having access to opportunities that previously they didn't have. But it also, I think, allows for a shift in the mentality around what clinical trials and clinical research does. It opens up a lot more cultural perspectives, a lot more environmental, geographical, whatever. We're now getting these different perspectives that originally weren't there because trials were done only in big cities or what have you, and we're now expanding that. So it's a very exciting kind of time to see that. And also, again, not to beat the dead horse that is COVID, but we just went through 2 years as a global society, and now we can experience those things while also working together to combat them. And that is, you know, this was kind of our first trial run, but it's only going to go up from here. So really excited to see what happens.
Great answer. Okay, Allison, do you want to take a crack at the decentralized trial question?
Sure. You and I talk about this. We call it decentralized trials, but there's a huge piece of centralization to it. And interesting, because you have a central sort of hub that might be like a coordinating center, and then you're able to sort of have decentralized activity. So decentralized activity, that might be in the patient home, in the community, in centers or clinics where people regularly go with people that they trust, supporting them through that trial journey. But that by centralizing some of the coordination aspects, I think it reduces burden. It reduces burden and waste on the clinical research team, reduces costs, and we've talked about the accessibility, more accessible to patients and the public, but also to other clinicians and healthcare providers that want to be involved in research and clinical trials and able to do that in their communities. So that's what I think is really cool about it. But interesting that we call it decentralized, but there's a huge piece that's centralized. And that's great because the expertise that you need and the technology you need, that part does need to come from a central source and sort of be funded and resourced centrally to allow for that decentralized activity.
I'm going to swing this one around to, I'm picking on people, on to Robin and see if you want to hit it from an ecosystem perspective.
Sure. I think that the technologies and expertise being developed for use in decentralized clinical trials are going to contribute to the robustness of our overall research ecosystem. So once these systems and platforms are in place and everyone's comfortable navigating within them, I think the more standard trial designs are going to benefit by using them where they can for increased efficiency, but also as a fallback. You know, if we ever have to pivot again and operate remotely because there's another pandemic, then those things will be in place and we'll know how to use them.
Good answer. Okay, there's some really good audience questions here, and I want to kind of tackle a few of them. So maybe I'll go for a few short answer questions. This first one, what is the single biggest lesson we've learned from history that will enable us to succeed in the future in future clinical trials? Maybe Robin? Do you want to try that one again? I always pick on Robin for history questions.
I think let's pass that over to Mark.
Okay.
All right then. I think those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And as a society, as a global civilization, we're constantly trying to improve. And, I don't think anyone can deny that there have been certain dark periods in clinical trials. And as Allison had mentioned, shifting from a subject perspective, guinea pig perspective, to these are people, these are humans, they're part of the process. And so moving towards that patient-oriented research lens is really going to allow us to improve on the kind of care that comes out of this research and what is most important for the humans behind it. Steph, with her results, had mentioned that the participants they deserve to know what the results of their trial they participated in. I'll take it one step further. They want to know what the results were. They want to be part of that process. They want to know what they're doing has meaning. And by kind of creating this new lens to look through it is really going to open up a lot of doors for us as a society to move forwards and just get better and better.
Good answer. I think so. Okay. Another question from the audience. How has the recruitment role of patients changed in clinical trials? Who would like to have a crack at that one?
I can take a stab, Jean. Well, I think I'm going to talk about in two different aspects. So I think we heard previously, like Ashley mentioned it, and everyone talking about how everything's more digital and online now. The recruitment activity has changed, where you're not only seeing patients coming from like urban city centers or research hospitals, that now it's kind of expanded to include like rural areas, being that everything can be accessed online. So that's been great to see that change. But the role of patients themselves, I think, in clinical trials and studies, the fact that they can now not only be a participant, but also be involved with the research design, the study design aspects of it, as like a patient partner, all kind of under the sphere of being more patient-oriented, doing patient-oriented research. I think that's been a huge change. Like patients can provide so much more than just their blood or their data and part of how they're feeling. That experience can help inform how to design a quality study. It can inform whether the study visits make sense, the procedures are not too burdensome. It can help prevent early dropouts of people who might be participating in those trials. So there's just so much more that a patient can help with now, and that it will help improve everybody, again, like the design of the quality of the study, but also the experience of the participants as well.
So along that same line is another question, similar but kind of builds on that. What is the most important aspect of clinical trials that patients need to know about? Anybody want to go for that one? They're all quiet.
Well, you know what, Jean? And I hadn't really thought about this question. I didn't have a pre-answer, but as you're saying it, that again, it keeps coming back to that's where we would want to ask them. I think it's where you want to ask them about a particular trial, but a particular therapeutic area around the outcomes of that trial. And so it's hard to answer what is the most important aspect, because we need to ask them what they think is the most important aspect and then tell them that and give them that information or ask for their input on that. So maybe that's what
I think we see that at all levels now, is that, decisions were made without consultation, and now every policy and procedure, we have a huge consultation period, and with all stakeholders, And I think that's very welcomed, and you're going to get more buy-in, and whether it's compliance or regulatory or policy or the development of a study or pursuing research in a specific disease area, I think that consultation process is important now. You're seeing that worldwide and certainly at the local level.
Yeah, well, actually, thinking back to last summer with the Health Canada public consultation for the new modernization of the regulations, and they had a whole session that was for patients and the public, an open session that anyone could join and give input to what they wanted to see.
Yes, yes, good.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my favorite part of Ask Us. It's the rapid fire, and I'm going to ask the team their top what they look forward to in the international modernization and the national renovation of clinical trials. So I'll call on you individually, but what is your number one thing that you're looking forward to? And Steph.
Thanks, Jean. I dislike paper. I've been trying to be more environmentally friendly with the amount of trash we produce. So I'm going to pick e-informed consent, just to the fact that it can hopefully get rid of the amount of paper that we produce.
Allison.
Well, I'll go one step further on Steph's comment, because for me, honestly, it's the e-signatures in a system that everybody can access, because the amount of time you spend trying to get paperwork in front of investigators or the clinicians or lab, pharmacy, your CRAs, and contracts, everything, just having the power of just being able to sign documents from wherever you are in a validated way has reduced so much waste and burden that I think is the most fantastic thing that we have right now.
Yeah, the then was we used to courier across the country, obtaining signatures. It's like very slow.
Yeah, driving to various offices.
Rishi.
Thanks, Jean. I guess I'll go away from the signatures and paper point and just say, just getting more participant and patient voices involved in designing trials. I'm excited about that. Just figure out ways that we can make trials more convenient. Realistically, a lot of the people who need trials need them to be as convenient as possible. We need to hear from them more and figure out ways that we can help them. So I'm excited about what the future of that holds and how we can improve that.
I could probably do a whole show with this with Mark, but Mark, what's your number one?
I guess my number one would be a bit more of a broad, general umbrella, whatever you want to call it, but I'd say the accessibility. I'd say being able to expand the traditional view of doctor, PhD knows best here. Everyone has to go to that center. That's the end of it. There are incredibly smart people in every single corner of this planet of ours. And by being able to broaden the scope that we're working in, allows for all of these different perspectives to come to light. And not only that, but also providing the foundation for people to then start thinking about things that can come to light. So I think by spreading that awareness, that accessibility, that is what I'm most excited about.
Robin, your number one thing that you're looking forward to with the modernization and renovation?
Sure. I think we're in a period of growing pains right now with all these new technologies and ways of doing things. So I'm really looking forward to getting used to these new systems and it becoming second nature. So it's just, yeah, you use e-consent, use e-signature, and that's just how it's done. And if I can throw in a second one, I'm really looking forward to not using fax machines anymore, although realistically they might outlast me.
That's a good then and now, perfect with the theme. And Aisling, I think I forgot.
I think Mark stole my answer. Accessibility, definitely. No, there's so many things, but I think like what Alison said, making it more patient-centered, that patient-centered approach. And a big thing is that around that is data protection. So we'll be able, offer better data protection for participants. So like maintaining that sense of integrity over their data and giving them more control over it throughout the duration of the entire clinical trial. So building that sense of trust and keeping promises and really giving people the best possible experience they can have and that they deserve. And a part of that was mentioned earlier was sharing results from the trials as well. So working around data protection for people and empowering people participating.
Great answers, everybody. And I'm just loving the lemon background. Thank you very much to our viewing audience for your presence and participation today. They were just some great questions. And some of the ones we didn't get to, we might even have as a topic in the next season. And a couple people will write back to you. So I think the answer to our overriding question, which were the significant ways clinical trials are evolving, what I'm hearing from the team is ongoing accelerated technology advances, the development of approaches to welcome new types of promising products and getting that infrastructure and everything ready for that. And it sounds like the arrival of new clinical trial types and designs. Pretty good. Thank you to our guests today. We very much appreciated your enthusiasm, your expertise, and towards clinical trials. And a huge congratulations to the Clinical Trial BC 2022 awards. I hope that they will inspire everybody that's here listening to nominate some leaders and supporters of clinical trials for the 2023 awards. The nominations will open up in the fall in September. Nyan, I know you had some a draw that you want to do. Our draw was for International Clinical Trials Day, and it's a chocolate basket from Clinical Trials BC. And the winner is Carolina Jones. Congratulations, Carolina. Okay, well, we make arrangements if you want to contact Nan to have that delivered to you. And Nan has a couple of announcements, quick ones.
Hello, everyone. So just some housekeeping stuff before we conclude our presentation today. This webinar was recorded, and the recording of this webinar will be sent to you by email and uploaded to our website. Also in the email, there will be an evaluation survey. The result and feedback of this evaluation survey will help us inform our future program like this. And we would really appreciate if you can take your time and give us feedback. If you haven't connected with us, we really recommend you can visit our website at clinicaltrialsbc.ca. If you have any questions, please send us an email at clinicaltrialsbc@harrisbc.ca, and also following us on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Great.
Here are the references that we use for the slide, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, a special thank you again to our season 2 producer, Nando, and all of our web show hosts throughout the season, and all of our wonderful guests. It has been a really great season 2. Both of those season 1 and season 2 series are posted on our website. And we really do hope to see you for season 3 of Ask Us in the fall. And Allison, for a few final words.
Thank you, Jean. Thanks, everyone, for your engaged discussion today. This has been a great Ask Us event. And thank you all for joining. On behalf of Michael Smith, Health Research BC, and all of us here at Clinical Trials BC, we wish you a happy International Clinical Trials Day tomorrow.